So I've been obsessed with this channel for 3 months now. Ever since my friend showed me, I've just been addicted to these videos. The channel is called The Operation Room, and if you aren't already, please go subscribe. Today we're learning about Battle of the Bulge. Now, I don't know a ton about the Battle of the Bulge. This was as World War II was winding down. This was like the last major stand the Germans had against the West, the Americans and British. I've read many alternative history scenarios and played a lot of game mods that like show what if this went the other way. This could have really changed a lot of things for Germany.
5:20 AM local time on December 16th, 1944. The quiet stillness of the Ardennes forest is shattered by the thunder of heavy guns.
Once again, that forest.
Across the densely wooded area stretching across Luxembourg and Belgium.
That was the forest they went through to
artillery has opened a
move around
massive
the national
barrage,
line.
while V1 buzz bombs scream overhead towards the cities of Liège and Brussels. German gunners set their fuses to explode in the treetops, showering their targets with wooden splinters. The Führer's orders are that
already
are to
I
attack
love
first.
these videos so much. Like the overhead look of everything. That's how all the details are broken down visually for you. It's amazing.
So the panzer divisions can advance on the Meuse with their strength intact. The American infantrymen caught in this onslaught are bewildered. Their officers have assured them that the enemy is beaten and that this is a calm section of the front.
Ooh. Yeah, they're going to be in for a
Outposts
surprise.
Report coming under heavy ground attack. The Battle of the Bulge has begun.
So this happens in Belgium.
This attack is born out of desperation. The German
wow,
army
Indy's
has
here.
been in steady retreat across the Western Front for 6 months since
He
the
also has
Allies
a great
landed in
YouTube channel.
Normandy. Now the battered Wehrmacht has been pushed all the way to the Reich's border. On the Eastern Front, the Red Army stands on the banks of the Vistula River, less than 350 miles from Berlin. Germany is being squeezed on both sides, and it is only a matter of time before the war is lost.
So that's the thing. That's what makes this really interesting. So if Germany, I don't know, wins the Battle of the Bulge, or at least delays the progress that, was happening in the West, then do we live in a Cold War with an Iron Curtain that has access to all of Germany, not Germany divided in half? I'm pretty sure Germany was going to fall either way here.
The Führer plans one last major offensive to defeat his enemies. In 1940, the German leader oversaw Case Yellow, which saw German armor sweep through the Ardennes and cut off the combined Anglo-French army at the port of Dunkirk. The Führer believes the success of this daring operation can be replicated. In September of 1944, the Führer ordered preparations for a major offensive through the Ardennes aimed at the strategically vital port of Antwerp. He outlines another armored thrust that will smash the American units in the Ardennes, cross the Meuse River, dash to Antwerp, and trap the British and Canadian armies in a massive pocket. He believes this will force the Allied leaders to the negotiating table and allow him to turn his full attention to the Eastern Front.
Okay.
The Führer's plan is ambitious and risky. He is counting on poor winter weather to hamper the overwhelming Allied air
He's pretty
power.
desperate at this point.
3 German armies of about 400,000 men in 30 divisions will attack on a 37-mile wide front. These troops represent Germany's last strategic reserves, and a rapid pace of advance has been demanded of them.
So
the spearhead of the advance will be the 5th and 6th
the
Panzer
winter was
armies,
involved a little bit.
whose powerful armoured formations must cross the Meuse in 2 days and capture Antwerp in 4. His generals do not believe this is possible, but German High Command agrees that the outcome of the war rests on this operation.
I know that things get
no matter the costs.
Really freaky for a second here.
In the north,
really
the
little testy, a little scary.
General Sepp Dietrich has the shortest
because they're
going to
definitely make a push.
And has been given 60% of the armour for the operation. At the tip of the spear is Kampfgruppe Piper, a powerful SS Panzer unit led by Obersturmbannführer Joachim Piper.
So they do make it that
comprised
river?
of grizzled veterans of the Eastern Front. Piper's route has been personally chosen by the Führer, and his men are expected
veterans
to be
of the Eastern Front,
formation
that just sounds terrifying.
In the centre, 5th Panzer Army under the command of General Hasso von Manteuffel.
So you can already see, like, the Allies here really didn't have a lot going on in this area, at least comparatively to what they had in the north. So it looks like this is actually going to go really well for the Germans.
Take the towns of Saint-Vit and Bastogne, 2 critical road junctions that are of paramount importance to the German advance. Their paved roads will allow the armour of the Panzer Lehr, 2nd Panzer and 116th Panzer Divisions to race towards the Meuse with great haste. The southern shoulder is assigned less importance, with General Erich Brandenberger's 7th Army relegated to protecting the flank of the advance.
Yeah, because they're trying to encircle them
when the attack
up
begins
here,
in the north, a platoon of 18 men and 4 artillery observers under the command of Lieutenant Lyle Buch Jr. are holding the strategically important village of Lanzerath, along with a section of tank destroyers. The Germans must take this town before the tanks of Kampfgruppe Piper can get moving towards the Meuse. When the German barrage opens, Buch's men dive into their foxholes, while the tank destroyers retreat past them without warning.
It's so crazy seeing
Bemused, an infantryman remarks,
this scenario.
"They might at least wave goodbye."
All the little mini
Buch's
battles
men
that we
soon
don't even
spot
talk
a full
about. It's
regiment
just so
of German
much.
Fallschirmjäger paratroopers marching up the hill toward them in a twin column. They lie in ambush when just as the platoon is about to open fire. A little girl runs up to the German soldiers and betrays the American position. Paratroopers dive to the ground and a firefight breaks out. Despite losing the chance for an ambush, Lieutenant Buch's men fend off multiple attacks from the Fallschirmjägers.
I'm assuming it's still going to go well for the Germans.
Artillery support on the radio, only to be told that fire missions are needed elsewhere, as the observers disbelieve what Buch is seeing.
Or maybe not, they look like they were
Fed up after being rejected again, he responds, "God damn it, don't tell me what I don't see. I have 20/20 vision. Bring down all the artillery you've got on the road south of Lanzerath. The whole goddamn German army is coming down the road."
They didn't listen?
His artillery support never comes. Nonetheless, his tiny force continues to hold their position against wave after wave of German attacks. Facing the German formations are a hodgepodge of American units. In the north, the inexperienced 99th and 106th Infantry Divisions have not seen serious combat before, and have been placed in the Ardennes to gain gradual experience.
So that's not good.
The 4th and 28th Infantry Divisions are battle-hardened formations that are deployed to this quiet sector of the front to recover from the terrible losses they suffered in the Battle of the Hurtgen Forest.
Inexperienced.
They are part of General Troy Middleton's 8th Corps, which is spread thinly across the front. The 2nd Infantry Division, along with elements of the 9th Armoured Division, are also in the region. The Western Allies have made critical mistakes in their preparation, and intelligence has failed to detect the imminent offensive. However, it is complacency that will cost the Allies the most.
What I want to know is what the Allies were really thinking at this time. Like, obviously this was probably going to come as a surprise, but what did they think Germany was going to do on their last leg? Were they assuming the Germans were just going to slowly crumble, like they weren't going to put up much of a fight? Or they were going to fight, but they were just going to try to hold out for as long as possible? I wonder if they were surprised that they saw this offensive in the West. Maybe they thought something like this would happen, but more against the Soviets?
A sense of victory fever has infected Allied high command. A belief that the Third Reich is on the verge of collapse and no longer capable of offering resistance.
I mean, who won it?
When 12th Army Group
we were
Commander
successful in
General
D-Day,
Omar Bradley
liberated France.
about
we're probably like, oh, this is
German
slam dunk
in the Ardennes, he dismisses the warning, stating, "Let them come."
So that,
as it turns out, it will be Bradley's troops who will soon bear the brunt of the fighting.
Oh boy. So that explains why they're going to have some success.
Men continue to stand their ground against a force which outnumbers them 22-1. However, as night falls, the German paratroopers manage to flank Buch's position through the forest to their rear.
Oh boy.
Despite being enveloped,
paratrooper through the
Buch's
night.
men continue to resist until they run out of ammunition and are captured.
Yeah, they're surrounded.
Incredibly, his 22 men have held up a regiment of over 500 paratroopers for an entire day.
Wow.
And have inflicted 96 casualties, at a cost of just 1 man dead and several wounded.
That's amazing.
However, the most important achievement is delaying the advance of the entire 1st SS Panzer Division Leibstandarte along with Kampfgruppe Piper. They will later be awarded the Presidential Unit Citation, the only platoon to receive this honour in the Second World War.
Wow.
In the centre, the 5th Panzer Army attacks without an artillery barrage, catching the 106th and 28th Infantry Divisions completely by surprise.
For the Allies.
The commanding officer of the 106th Division, Major General Alan W. Jones, loses contact with his forward units almost immediately. Jones can only sit helplessly at his headquarters in St. Vite.
So these guys are already stretching up there.
Struggles with the German onslaught. In Versailles, Supreme Allied Commander Dwight Eisenhower is celebrating his promotion to General of the Army with General Bradley when he's interrupted by news
his presidency.
Of the attack. Bradley believes this is a small action to spoil General George Patton's advance in Lorraine, but Eisenhower's gut tells him that the situation is more serious than it is being portrayed.
Eisenhower.
Communications from the front are terrible, and local commanders are unable to determine the scope of the German attack. Faced with a critical decision, Eisenhower acts quickly and orders Patton
Were they
to
back
halt his
on the
attack
Maginot
while
Line
sending
right here?
reinforcements from across the Western Front to the
Or was
Ardennes.
that broken down by this point?
His intuition proves to be correct. By the afternoon, Allied command understands that a major offensive is underway.
So they were reinforcing from the
By the evening
south.
of December the 16th, the German offensive is close to breaking through the American lines in several places, but unexpectedly, tenacious resistance
Look at this. Look, they've got nothing ready.
Timetable for advance.
They're not prepared for
The
this.
Führer's insistence on the infantry forcing breakthroughs for the panzers is proving to be a mistake.
And everything is
In
right
many
here
places,
too.
the infantry
You
lack
can
the
see
firepower to
the
press
encirclement they're trying to go
attacks.
for.
To aid the ground assault, Colonel Friedrich von der Heiter, whose men had fought Easy Company of the 101st Airborne at Carentan, has been ordered to paradrop 1,300 Fallschirmjägers behind American lines
Wow.
to capture vital crossroads and disrupt American supply. The operation had been initially scheduled for the night of the 15th of December, cancelled, and then rescheduled for midnight on the 17th.
So we are heading into a winter. It's December
The drops
15th.
are a complete disaster because of windy conditions along with inexperienced soldiers and pilots.
Oh, you know, at this point in the war, were they sending out all the old men and youths because they just had depleted their manpower?
Drop and return to base while others drop their paratroopers in German territory. Von der Heiter only manages to rally 300 mostly combat ineffective men once the drops are finished.
Out of 1,000?
The 285th Field Artillery Observation
Those are
Battalion
not
of
good
the
odds,
American
huh?
7th Armoured Division is one of the many formations that has been ordered into the Ardennes by Eisenhower. They arrive on the northern shoulder of the German attack, the morning of the second day of the battle. As the convoy of trucks approaches the town of Bugny, south of Malmedy, they pass Belgian civilians who frantically point down the road and
all
shout,
happening
"Bosch, Bosch."
in Belgium.
The unsuspecting GIs merely wave back, not understanding
Ooh.
what the locals are saying.
Ooh.
When the convoy reaches the Bugny crossroads, they run straight into Panther tanks and
Oh,
SS
man.
Panzer Grenadiers.
Oh, they're getting lit
Panthers
up down
destroy
there.
the first and last trucks in the convoy, trapping the formation in place.
Oh.
The Americans are raked with gunfire as men tumble out of their trucks and try to escape.
Oh, that's
This is the
rough.
vanguard of Kampfgruppe Piper, which has finally broken through and advanced rapidly throughout the morning. Having been delayed for so long the previous day, Piper is in a vicious mood and orders his men to be harsh in their advance.
Yeah.
US units, which are already offering tenacious resistance, now fight with a fanatical determination to avoid being taken prisoner.
Yeah.
In San
It
Vite,
might have had the opposite
General
effect.
Jones of the 106th Division receives the chilling news that 2 of his forward regiments have been cut off by the German advance. Later that afternoon at 2:30 p.m, Jones hears small arms fire and can see for himself the tanks of the 116th Panzer Division approaching the town.
That is such a terrifying... I've always thought about this, like, imagine being encircled. You're behind enemy lines. You really have nowhere to go. I mean, there's something really scary about that, obviously, because where do you go? You have to sit here and wait for hopefully a division outside to break through, come save you, right?
He receives reports that enemy armour is 6 miles behind his lines. Nonetheless, Jones's shattered division, along with elements of the 7th Armoured and other retreating units, form a scratch team to defend San Vite in a horseshoe shape. They must deny the Germans the critical road junction as long as possible.
So they're not going to be able
Further
to
to
save
the
those
south,
divisions?
Major General Norman Cota's 28th
Or
Infantry Division is
infantry
taking a pounding.
battalions, I don't know.
Cota has already distinguished himself in the war when he personally led the breakout from Omaha Beach on D-Day, but his understrength division is a shadow of its former self when it was the first American unit to parade through the streets of liberated Paris.
Yeah, see, you can so see how the Americans were probably thinking, this whole thing is over, we're going to just walk straight to Berlin, it's done. You were successful on D-Day, you know, yeah, they were just talking about the celebration in Paris once you liberate France. Like, I can just see there was no way they were expecting this hard of a resistance from the Germans.
Yet, Cota's men continue to offer fierce resistance. A platoon of American infantry are holding the village of Holstham to the east of Cota's headquarters.
Once again,
in, the strategic
in Belgium
town of
too.
Vils,
Belgium just
when
getting
they spot
ravaged.
German tanks
Not only in
approaching their
WW1,
position.
also in WW2.
Despite having 2 bazookas, only their commanding sergeant knows how to operate the anti-tank weapon. The bazooka must usually be operated by a 2-man team, but there is no time to train the other men how to use it.
So just one
You
dude.
must hope that there are no faults in the electrical wiring, which would render the weapon useless. The sergeant grabs a bazooka and sets out to hunt the tanks, hoping to catch them in the vulnerable rear of the vehicle. He instead rounds the first corner and comes face to face with the leading Panzer IV.
Oh no!
The massive vehicle stops and takes aim, but the sergeant fires a shot that fails to penetrate the tank's frontal armour and ducks behind a house. The Panzer obliterates the building with its 75mm gun.
Yeah, you want to
Unharmed and undeterred,
wow.
the sergeant runs to the second story of an adjacent house
wow.
and fires 2 more ineffective bazooka rounds into the side armour. The bazooka was designed to penetrate 3-inch armour, but the armoured side skirts on the upgraded Panzer IVs are deflecting the shape charges. The weapon is out of its element in this fight.
He's got to get out of the building.
Finally, his 4th shot damages the turret and the tank retreats along with the rest of the Panzer IVs.
Wow, what a Chad.
Despite its ineffectiveness in armour penetration, the bazooka's convenient loading mechanism allowed the sergeant to fire off 4 rounds in less than a minute.
That is so
this
epic.
Let the Americans in Holstham know that they are the only unit between the leading elements of the Panzer Division and Kota's headquarters in Wiltz.
So it's going to slow him down even more?
Wiltz will hold out for another 2 days, further frustrating really just about the German advance.
Slowing him down until his reinforcements get there.
The 28th Infantry Division is essentially destroyed by the end of the second day of the offensive. Although they have been massively delayed, the 5th Panzer Army has finally broken through in the centre, and the road to Bastogne is open. The 2nd Panzer and
there's just a couple dudes
race towards the strategic crossroads
well, I don't know
with
how
little
many people,
resistance in their way. In the north, Kampfgruppe Piper is spearheading the 6th Panzer Army's advance towards the Meuse, with American units trying to regroup on the Elsenborn Ridge.
Are these guys still stuck in the circle?
Eisenhower recognises this, and now moves every available unit to the front. Exhausted former drivers of the now defunct Red Ball Express, the truck supply system halted in November, are ordered to abandon their new assignments and instead drive to every Allied assembly area to pick up units.
Can they just fly there? I thought they had wings.
The 82nd and 101st Airborne Divisions have been resting and refitting in Rem, when both divisions are alerted to the developing crisis.
Well, they're not technically in Belgium yet.
While the 82nd has had more time to replenish its ranks after tough fighting in Operation Market Garden, the 101st is short of everything. The division is under strength, has reduced stocks of ammo, and no winter clothing. General Maxwell Taylor, commanding officer of the 101st, isn't even in the country, and temporary command has been passed to Brigadier General Anthony McAuliffe.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Regardless, they are ordered onto trucks which set off for the Ardennes. The 82nd Airborne will be sent to the northern shoulder to hold the Elsenborn Ridge.
What's something to consider when I look at these maps, for instance, is you don't know, if you're from the West, if you're an American right now, you don't know exactly what the Germans have, right? You probably know, you know some divisions, but you probably don't know exactly this. I would assume, I'm assuming this map is showing us exactly, something along the lines of what they had, but if you're an American, you probably are unsure. So imagine if they really knew the amount of German force. I mean, they had an idea because they were calling everyone to the front lines, but this just looks scary. Because it's going to take a couple days for everyone to get there. I would assume a couple days.
First will be deployed to Bastogne in the centre. Among these are the men of Easy Company.
I'm sure at this point they were probably getting a better idea of how much they were facing.
They are now a small part of the more than 250,000 Allied soldiers racing towards the Ardennes to blunt the German breakthrough. The swift turnaround of so many men and material to the Bulge is one of the greatest logistical achievements of the Second World War.
Wow.
In Paris, Ernest Hemingway, the famous author turned war correspondent, is recovering from bronchitis when he hears news of the German attack. He is determined to rejoin his unit, the 4th Infantry Division, which is now engaged in desperate fighting on the southern shoulder of the enemy advance.
I had no idea about Ernest Hemingway.
Amid scenes of chaos in the Ritz Hotel, with American military police ordering officers and men to return to their units, Hemingway's brother Lester finds him in his hotel room packing a Thompson submachine gun along with ammunition.
There we go.
Hemingway explains to his brother, "There's been a complete breakthrough. This thing could cost us the works. Their armour is pouring in. They're taking no prisoners.
Wow.
Load those clips and wipe every cartridge clean." At 6:45 a.m. on the morning of December the 18th,
so we know they're going to get there, the Americans,
of the Battle of the Bulge,
but there's still going to be
of the 2nd Infantry
big
Division
bulge here.
spot German armour approaching their position on the Elsenborn Ridge. The 600 men of the 1st Battalion of the 9th Infantry Regiment are under the command of Lieutenant Colonel William D. McKinley, the grandnephew of the American president with whom he shares a name.
Oh wow!
He has been tasked with defending the twin villages of Rochorath Krinkelt.
Like that adds a lot. It's really cool.
1st Battalion's objective is to buy time for a new defensive line to be constructed behind them, as they are currently the only units that can stop the German 12th SS Panzer Division from breaking through and cutting off the entire 2nd Infantry Division. The ensuing battle rages for hours. The American infantrymen are outnumbered 2 to 1, but they have a significant advantage in artillery.
Seems to be the theme here.
The Elsenborn Ridge dominates the entire Ardennes region and provides a natural platform for American heavy guns. The Germans quickly learn how formidable this position is as they advance on Rocherath-Krinkelt. In one 20-minute fire mission, 348 artillery pieces fire 5,760 rounds in support of the defenders at the twin villages.
Wow.
These guns can reach anywhere on the entire northern shoulder and must be neutralised by the Germans. 1st Battalion holds off the first attacks with help from tank destroyers and artillery support, but their defensive lines are gradually overwhelmed one by one. German Panthers and Panzer IVs score hits on the few M10 tank destroyers and breach the outer defences. The Panzers then drive over the battalion's trenches and iron them in, collapsing the trench walls and trapping the defenders under snow and dirt. American anti-tank gun crews fire back with their 57mm guns, but find that their rounds are bouncing off the enemy tanks. The fighting gets so desperate that McKinley's forward units call in artillery fire on their own positions as they are overrun by the German attackers. Finally, McKinley receives orders to withdraw to the new defensive line, but by this time the enemy is so close that he is unable to extricate his men from the fight. The front line has been broken, and SS troops are starting to pour towards the village.
Yeah, they're rolling in.
Just as the entire battalion is about to be overwhelmed, 4 Sherman tanks from the 741st
I was wondering
Tank
what that
Battalion
was.
appear like cavalry riding to the rescue.
Yeah, that was cool.
The Shermans surprise the SS division and quickly knock out 3 panzers.
Dang.
The enemy attack finally falters, and Lieutenant Colonel McKinley's men are able to retreat in good order after the timely arrival of the American armour.
That is amazing.
A skeleton crew of
that's
American
a movie
infantry
moment.
now holds the twin villages as a rear guard after 1st Battalion falls back. Frustrated by the delays, the commander of the 12th SS Panzer Division throws in his reserves to finally overrun the last GIs.
Yeah,
2
I'm sure the
regiments,
Germans are going to keep
1
getting
Volks
frustrated
Grenadier and 1 Panzer Grenadier,
because they got to go faster.
supported by a fresh battalion of 96 Panther tanks,
That could cause
80
mistakes.
mechanised half-tracks, and 12 Jagdpanzer tank destroyers, form up for the final assault. Facing them are the remnants of the 38th Infantry Regiment with a platoon each of Shermans and M10 tank destroyers. The 801st Tank Destroyer Battalion and their towed artillery also
I learned so much about military
brings its
equipment
guns
too
to bear
by
on the approaching enemy.
watching these videos, which I'm
In the
severely
mid-afternoon,
severely
the
lacking
Panthers
knowledge.
and Jagdpanzers storm the twin villages while the American defenders fire back with bazookas. The GIs have barricaded the houses and skillfully
bazookas
hidden
have
their few
problems against the
remaining
Panzers.
tanks. They managed to catch the Panthers and Jagdpanzers
maybe
in
they
the
can get lucky.
vulnerable side armor,
Oh, yep.
destroying them one after the other.
Wow.
The Germans do take heavy casualties in the narrow streets, with over 30 armoured vehicles lost to American anti-tank guns through the day.
Wow.
Eventually, the weight of numbers is too much, and the rearguard is eventually forced to retreat by the afternoon.
30
The
armored
Rocherath-Krinkelt
losses.
area will be nicknamed the Panzer Graveyard by the Germans who fought for it. It's the third day of the Ardennes offensive, and the situation hangs in the balance. The German 5th Panzer Army has forced a massive breakthrough in the centre of the American line,
That's going to be a
while
problem.
the 6th Panzer Army is launching desperate assaults on the Elsenborn Ridge along the northern shoulder of the advance. Any hope of stopping the Panzers
I'm getting
from
anxiety
reaching
just
the Meuse
watching
River
this.
and dashing to
Even though I
Antwerp
know what happens, I'm
rests with
getting
the
anxiety.
battered American divisions along with other scratch units caught up in the offensive. They must hold until reinforcements from across the Western Front arrive on the scene.
Kampfgruppe Piper is continuing its advance in the north, searching for bridges that will take the armored formation closer to the Meuse crossings. Piper has been forced to deviate from the path personally chosen by the Führer due to poor roads and inadequate bridges which can't support the weight of his immense King Tiger tanks. His only goal now is to keep exploiting his local breakthrough and get to the Meuse as quickly as possible. They couldn't support the weight,
they were that huge?
Piper attacks the village of Stavelot in the morning, where a company of the American 526th Armored Infantry Battalion has set up an anti-tank barrier to stop the Germans from breaking into the town and taking its critical bridge over the Amblève River. The Americans are still positioning their men and anti-tank guns in Stavelot.
I'm guessing you don't want to just blow up the bridge.
Panther tanks
it's not worth
and
it,
a company
right?
of Panzer Grenadiers charging down the hillside on the road to the bridge. The Americans manage to knock out the first Panther, which bursts into flames. but it has built up such speed going
it's still going
that it smashes right through the anti-tank barrier.
Whoa!
The second Panther exploits the opening and occupies the bridge, followed rapidly by the Panzer Grenadiers. 57mm anti-tank guns fire several ineffective rounds at the German tank before they are overrun. Thanks to the stunning assault, the Americans are unable to blow the bridge, and Piper's men are
so they
one
were
step closer to the moon.
They were going to blow it, but
will continue over the next days, but over 800 SS vehicles will cross over Stavros Bridge on December 18th.
So if they blew that,
by the late morning,
could have changed a lot.
The 1st Battalion, 9th Infantry Regiment have retired to their new defensive line further up the Elsenborn Ridge. Their holding action at Rocherath-Krinkelt has allowed the 2nd Division to re-establish a firm front. But the battalion
I want to know what's going on with the divisions up in the north that were all like clustered together, the American divisions. I'm sure some of them have to be
infantry division
trying to get out of there
to the front to bolster the line.
Move down south.
While the rear guard at the twin villages continues to hold back the bulk of the 12th SS Panzer Division, a convoy of 7 American trucks approaches a battalion of 99th Infantry from the southeast. A US tank destroyer fires a round over the leading truck, compelling it to stop. A patrol goes forward to properly identify the convoy. Suddenly, the men in the trucks open fire on the patrol, and a wave of German soldiers pile out of the convoy. On the first day of the offensive, the infamous Waffen-SS
These
commander
guys don't look
Otto
like they
Skorzeny
have much cover back
led
there.
an English-speaking commando team through Allied lines wearing American uniforms and driving captured Allied vehicles. Although their activities have been mostly confined to minor acts of sabotage, their presence has caused chaos and paranoia behind the front line.
Yeah,
this is
I
a
can
Trojan
see why,
horse
obviously.
trick. A different group of 140 SS soldiers in their own SS uniforms are attempting to penetrate the American lines using captured vehicles. However, the American defenders direct mortar fire and heavy machine guns on the SS troops.
Yeah, this whole area looks like there's not a whole lot of cover at all. There was
the German soldiers
forest
become
up here.
Casualties before they retreat in disarray. Their brazen attempt to bypass the American line on the Elsenborn Ridge demonstrates the importance of this high ground, control over which now determines the outcome of the 6th Panzer Army's northern thrust.
Wow.
Meanwhile, Piper has gotten much of his force through Stavlo, and he is now searching for a new bridge to the west.
He's way through there.
As of right now, there are no sizable Allied units between him and the Meuse. When his scouts locate another intact bridge at the village of Toipon,
he's going in Leroy Jenkins style.
Moves to exploit the opportunity. But just as the armoured column arrives, American engineers manage to blow the bridge before they can start crossing. Despite this setback, another bridge is discovered at Cheneux, and the column manages to capture it and cross. Unbeknownst to Piper, his force has been spotted by a low-flying American scout aircraft, which relays their position. In the centre of the line, the Germans
these guys are still encircled
on the mixture of American units defending St. Vith. Despite being outnumbered and low on ammunition, the remnants of the 106th Division and the 7th Armoured Division doggedly hold their ground thanks in part to unceasing artillery support.
Wow.
However,
that's crazy.
A large salient is developing around the critical road junction, and the American units are in danger of being cut off. With daylight running out, Piper's scouts find another bridge over the Lienne River. At the same time, Piper is leading his column across the bridge at Cheneux, when the weather temporarily clears. US Army Air Force P-47s descend on his exposed force while Piper runs for cover. The Allied strike aircraft, nicknamed the Yabos by the Germans,
I feel like we haven't heard
the Kampfgruppe, while
a whole lot about the Air Forces on both sides.
To drive them off. An SS Panzer Grenadier recalls that the Yabos hung in the air like wasps, but several are shot down by the Werwolf.
Luftwaffe. I would assume at this point in WW2, they probably weren't like all too strong. I mean, they'd been fighting for like 5 years. I'm just saying that they probably have seen better days at least.
By the time the attack is over, 2 Panthers along with 10 other vehicles are destroyed and Piper's advance is again delayed. Rushing to make up for lost time, his lead vehicle races to the bridge and is just about to cross when it is blown up in their faces by American engineers who had been alerted to his attack by the P-47 raid. Desperate,
Do you think they wait? I would wait personally. I mean, maybe that's risky, but like you wait, make sure that you waste as much of their time as possible so that like at the last second when you see them maybe like a mile away, then you blow. Now they have to go all the way back up this way.
The north to force a crossing at the last bridge in the area.
Yeah, see, now they have to go back up.
As the panzers approach the final bridge, they are met with
I don't know if they did it on purpose, but I would assume that's...
The Americans have laid an ambush after
being
alerted by the scout aircraft. After fighting off the ambush at great cost, German tankmen are dismayed to discover that the bridge isn't strong enough to support their vehicles.
Ooh.
With no more crossings left on this route, Piper must turn his entire column around and return to where he started the day.
Oh no.
At this moment, elements of the 82nd
I should be
are arriving to block Kampfgruppe Piper's advance west.
I feel like the Kool-Aid man.
The overextended force.
Because this is how you're gonna...
Miles to the south,
guy was way
the
out
situation is far worse for the Americans. The Panzer-Lehr and 2nd Panzer Divisions have been advancing throughout the day towards Bastogne. Both armoured divisions have been frustrated by traffic jams and small pockets of resistance, but considerable American reinforcements are still too far out to block the German advance. In Bastogne itself, the first echelons of the 101st Airborne and 10th Armoured Divisions
so they're already looking a lot more
area.
Reinforced than before.
Brigadier General McAuliffe of the 101st and Colonel William Roberts of the 10th Armoured are informed by 8th Corps Commander General Troy Middleton that their units are needed on the front as soon as possible. Move with the utmost speed, hold these positions at all costs. To buy time for arriving units to take up defensive positions, General Middleton dispatches Task Forces Harper and Rose of the 9th Armoured Division to cover the main roads leading into Bastogne from the east. They are to establish 2 roadblocks northeast of the village of Longvilly and hold off the Germans as long as possible. Task Force Rose is about to be assaulted by the heavy tanks of the 2nd Panzer Division.
That would be really scary going into that situation. If they literally just tell you that, hey, just hold them off for as long as possible. That makes me feel real good. Like, you know, we're gonna make it out of this.
Horse Grenadier Artillery Regiment.
I mean, I guess you just do what you gotta do.
They have already held off 2 probing attacks, but the main body of German
I'm sure there's a way
is
for
now
them to
down on them.
maybe be able to retreat if they need to.
The roadblock of Task Force Rose is engaged first as daylight is fading. Lieutenant Colonel Ralph Harper commands the 2nd roadblock 3 miles behind and learns right away that the 1st roadblock is about to be overrun. He requests to move up and relieve Task Force Rose, only to be
they got obliterated.
He can only sit helplessly and listen on the radio, while his comrades up the road
That's exactly what I was worried about.
Only a few stragglers make it back to Task Force Harper,
okay,
just
so
as
some
enemy
maybe
artillery
got
begins
back
to fall on the 2nd roadblock. Harper's men are positioned in a textbook anti-tank defence. His infantry have laid mines on the road, while a 57mm anti-tank gun is emplaced on higher ground to cover any advance. Shermans and half-tracks along with infantry entrenched in the shape of a horseshoe around the junction. Harper keeps a platoon of Shermans in reserve to counter-attack any enemy breakthrough. 17 Sherman tanks and some infantry are about to stand up to the entire 2nd Panzer Division.
Wow.
Harper's position soon faces probing attacks from the German forward infantry elements. His Shermans and infantry manage to beat back the first enemy assaults, which are not supported by armour.
Yeah, they were just running in there by themselves.
It is not long before Panzer IVs, Panthers and Stugs begin to arrive in force. Rather than charge the main road with the minefield in place, the Panzers instead hang back and use their superior firepower to engage the American armor.
That is intimidating, that shot zooming out like that, seeing all of it.
In the darkness of the night, the German tanks use the flames of knocked out half-tracks and Shermans to target other vehicles silhouetted by the flames. They destroy the American tanks one by one. Recognizing the hopeless situation, Harper orders the rest of his command to withdraw to Longvilly without him. He takes his reserve platoon of Shermans and launches a brave counterattack against the Panzers, determined to give his retreating men the best chance of survival.
Wow.
Every American tank is destroyed. By the end of the night, Task Forces Rose and Harper are entirely wiped out. Yet, their sacrifice is not in vain. They have further delayed the German advance.
It's all about that delay.
The race to Bastogne is one where every hour counts. The German vanguard reaches the outskirts of Bastogne to find Longvilly and the village of Noville already occupied by the first arriving elements of the 101st Airborne and the 10th Armoured Division.
Don't come here, no.
The 5th Panzer Army's attempt to take Bastogne without a fight has failed. The following morning, on December the 19th, the men of Kampfgruppe Piper are ready to resume the advance after their discouraging experience the previous day. They attack and capture the town of Stomont, preparing for another push towards the Meuse. However, Piper is stunned to learn that an American counterattack has retaken Stavelot and cut off his spearhead.
Oh.
He is forced to turn his entire force around once again, so he can retake Stavelot and reopen his supply line.
He's overrun.
In the centre, the 422nd and 423rd Infantry Regiments of the 106th Infantry Division
they bounced back.
have been cut off since the second day of the
Germans
offensive.
bring someone else up there?
Running short of ammunition and food.
I think they already said, but I'm surprised that he just went in there.
Almost 8,000 Americans fall into German captivity,
the
largest mass surrender of Americans ever in Europe.
They didn't
Yet
get it out of there.
the remainder of the 106th Division continues to hold out in the San Vit salient. The defenders are stretched thin, as the line they must cover continues to grow. On the northern shoulder, Kampfgruppe Piper continues to have a frustrating time.
So he did get out,
Piper's men have successfully retaken Stavelot and reopened his supply line, but at the cost of wasting the entire afternoon when they had hoped to move west.
Yeah, so now they have to go back
After
up.
dark, American soldiers from the 105th Engineer Battalion under the command of Captain Leyland Kofer infiltrate the town and head for the main bridge across the Amblev River. Kofer and his men place 20 50-pound boxes of TNT in one stack directly under the first span.
Oh, wow.
The engineers work quietly and with urgency while the Germans are oblivious to their presence.
Wow.
Just as they are finishing
Assassin's
their work,
Creed mode.
a German sentry spots them and the engineers start taking machine gun and tank fire.
No.
Kofer leads his men as they run free of the bridge and scatter. Kofer then detonates the explosives, which blow a large hole in the span. The company commander, Captain James Rice, cracks to an embedded Associated Press reporter. No German tank can jump that.
Wow.
Much of Piper's column is now trapped on the other side of the Amblev River. SS men execute 23 civilians that night in a rage. Over the course of the day in Verdun, Supreme Allied Commander Dwight Eisenhower has been presiding over a council of war. He is focused on Bastogne, which is quickly becoming the point of convergence for the entire German offensive. Eisenhower intends to redirect General George Patton's Third Army from their position in the south
These three got to be careful
to relieve the town. He asks Patton, "When can you start?" To which the boastful Patton responds, "As soon as you're through with me." Patton has secretly made preparations for this attack and his lead units are already heading north. Night falls on December the 19th, the day German panzers were supposed to be rolling into Antwerp.
Oh, so they were real...
American resistance, poor roads and snowy weather has successfully delayed the German offensive. To make matters worse, the Wehrmacht is expending twice as much fuel as originally planned for, and its armoured formations have still not broken free of the difficult terrain of the Ardennes forest.
They had okay.
Yet,
they did okay the first time.
Is one final effort to push towards the Meuse before Allied reinforcements can arrive. In Bastogne, the men of Easy Company are finally on the ground and moving towards their designated sector near the tiny village of Foy. On the way through Bastogne, they pass columns of defeated and shell-shocked American soldiers struggling to the rear. "They were just babbling," Captain Dick Winters recalled. "It was pathetic, we felt ashamed."
Ooh.
His enterprising men take advantage of the situation and begin relieving the retreating soldiers of their spare ammunition. As the paratroopers settle in and start digging their foxholes, they hear the unmistakable sound of small arms fire. The battle for the villages of Longvilly and Neuville have begun. This sound is soon replaced by the rattling of tank engines as the German panzers move to encircle Bastogne.
That's probably not a good sound
Easy
at all.
Company continues to dig their holes carefully and deep.
Sound of tank engines. I'm like sucked into this now. Just want to keep watching. But if you want to keep watching, go ahead and head over to the Operations Room channel for part 3 and part 4. And as I said, please subscribe if you like seeing their content. I'm honestly probably going to get stuck into watching this stuff all day long now. And big thanks to my patrons.
aPhatNarwhal.
Presented by Robert
My wife
E.
hates this
Sebi,
part.
if you hear this, I love you.
Drew's
Argentinian Grandpa.
is a wild
Bringbackpolandball. DannyThyGamer.
GoodOldRyah.
istoledrewspetdog.
Jakov.
Phresh Animations.
The Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth.
Why am I doing this?
The Mexicans.
And ZaneyBoi.